I trust everybody is doing well, and this is Epo Kokudia, and I'm back again on your screen with a mixture of a good news and a mixture of a bad news. All right, we just received a very important information from the Minister of Immigration today, and if you are not in Canada yet, it's a bad news. If you are planning to come to Canada, it's a bad news. But if you are within Canada and you're a student, it's a good news. All right, so it's a mixture of both. But to me, I've had a lot of my followers sending me messages about the news and to see how best we can, go about this bad news for them, since they are planning to move to Canada through education. All right, so just give me 1 minute and I'm going to share this good news, bad news feeling with you, my followers, and then we'll see what are some of the plans that you can start planning in order to be able to overcome this bad news. All right, so the IRCC have published a very huge news today about international students, and the news is for both international students living in Canada and for international students who are back home and they are planning to also migrate to Canada and study. All right, so we'll go to their webpage and then read the news and then see some of the things that you have to start planning about, especially when you are an international student and you are back home planning to move to Canada. And then the good news about those who are living here in Canada. Please comment on the comment section if you can hear my voice loud and clear. All right, so this is the news that was released today. It was released today on the 7th of December, and it is specifically released for international students both within Canada and those who are outside Canada and they are planning to move to Canada. All right, so we are not going to read all of it. If you go to the IRCC webpage and then you go to news release, you are going to see this full article and then you can read it to see the full details of it. But we are going to read some few portions that pertain to international students who are living in Canada and international students who are outside Canada and they are now planning, putting things together in order to move to Canada and study. All right, if you know someone who is an international student in Canada, you can send this video to him to watch, or you can tell him to check the news release from the IRCC today. All right, so the very first one, that is a very huge shock, a very bad news for our people back home. Charlie, with their bad news, but Charlie, someone name ye Ghana for the yenim kwan befaso. Yenim kwan befaso. So the plan A Bosona Samboa, plan B wo hono, enti no mamunsuru. We there ayadwebro. Oshe title now. I say stay calm and stay focused. All right, ayadwebro. We will still maneuver through this, and then inshallah God will speak. All right, so the very first one, which is a bad news, which I want to read, is this part, which says that the cost of living requirement for study permit applicants has not changed since the early 2000s. All right, so the minister is saying that since 2000, the cost of living was set at 10,000 Canadian dollars for a single applicant. As such, the financial requirement hasn't kept up with the cost of living over time, and resulting in students arriving in Canada only to learn that their funds aren't adequate. For 2024, which is next year onwards, a single applicant will need to show they have 20,650. That is over 100% increase. All right, over 100% increase, representing 75% of LI LICO in addition to their first year of tuition and travel costs. This change will apply to new study permit applicants received on or after January 1st, 2024. And say, one year admission, if you've gained your admission and you still haven't applied for your study permit yet, this is the time for you to apply. All right, if you apply now up to 31st of December, you are still going to be your application is still going to be processed using the old requirement, which is the 10,000 Canadian dollars. All right, but so who apply for study permit from on the 1st of December now, you are going to be judged, or your application is going to be processed based on the new announcement, which is you having 20,635 Canadian dollars in addition to your tuition fee. All right, so this is a very bad news for you, I understand, but Charlie, Ghana for the someone money acquiring befaso acquiring the Dawson be and don't get perturbed, don't get worried. You just have to stay focused. Make sure that you continue with searching for the schools. You apply. The most important thing is for you to get your admission. And when you get your admission, Charlie, bank statement need there. Someone in the just follow the process and so this is it. From 2000, the study permit living allowance was set at 20,000 Canadian dollars, and it hasn't been changed until 2023. All right, so 2023, that is 23 years ago, it hasn't been changed. And new minister now abasono, or say from 1st of December no wasisano or the court 20,635. That is times 2. Wow, name your Ghana exchange rate enkoye. Exchange rate enkoye. See na eko up na badan kakra na ko up boom na badan kakra na ko up boom na badan kakra. O multiply by our exchange rate of Canadian dollars now. I'm sure you are looking at somewhere around 180,000 Ghana cedis, 190,000 Ghana cedis, which is really not an easy money for you to come by. But so I share my previous videos on the document requirements now, especially proof of funds now. My church or nyamebia ubetimi anya proof of funds. Don't get worried. It is still something that you can overcome. All right, so that is the very bad news for those who are back home and you are planning to apply for a study permit to move to Canada, or so who dreams into Charlie who pursue use school na Fabra Canada. This is the bad news for you. Kind of bad news, but any bad news biasa. All right, so that is the bad news. But when you read down, you will see this good news for international students who are living here in Canada. All right, so it also says that the waiver on the 20 hours per week limit on the number of hours international students are allowed to work off campus whilst class is in session will be extended to April 30th, 2024. International students already in Canada, as well as applicants who have already submitted an application for a study permit as of December 7th, 2023, will be allowed to work off campus more than 20 hours per week until that time. We continue to examine options for this policy in the future, such as expanding off-campus working hours for international students to 30 hours per week whilst class is in session. All right, so this is a good news. Say, what Canada did that. That's all, yeah, international students, especially students now back Canada from 1st of January up to now. No, they are only working 20 hours a week. This news will give them the relief to go and look for more job, to work any hours at all that they want, to get more cash in order to pay their fees or do whatever that they want to do with the money. So this is the good news. The first one was a bad news, but this is a good news. Say unyamba Canada so yeah, na say why apply for study permit before December 7th. You are still qualified to work full-time or any hours you want when they finally grant you your study permit and then you come to Canada, but you are only allowed to work up to 30th of April. But like I said, maybe by the time at 30th April 2024 bedroom, they might also extend it and then you can continue working full-time. Working full-time will give you a lot of options to get a lot of more cash into your pocket to take off your tuition fees or take off other financial obligations that you have. So that this is the good news for us, especially students now currently or more system Charlie 20 hours a week it is nothing to write home about. You will not be able to work 20 hours a week to be able to even afford your tuition fees. All right, 20 hours a week now currently students use amount me, you can only use it to pay for your house bills or personal expenses and stuff like that. Okay, you cannot really be able to save enough to pay your tuition fee, depending on Charlie school hour. Some of the schools and their tuition fees are very expensive. Some of the colleges, the tuition fees are not that expensive. It can also help you to pay something little on your tuition fees and all that. But this news we can really go a long way to help a lot of international students now or Canada now. Currently normal use 20 hours a week. Charlie boys unimobia or your student quickly tell the person saying IRCC are releasing new information being to uncle check is see they'll be to my boy 40, 50, 80 hours. Most schools are on vacation now. Most schools will be on vacation from next week, and now Charlie juma no 60, 80, 40 till 30th of April. And the very last news, which is also a very bad news for our people who are living in Canada, is this one. All right, so during pandemic, the immigration service kept increasing the work permit for international students who are already in the system, and their work permits are about expiring each December. They kept increasing it, but this time around, when it was increased the last time up to 31st December 2023, this time around it is not going to be increased again. All right, so if you are an international student and you are still on work permit which is expiring this 31st December, you are not going to have the chance to have it extended. All right, so Charlie, if your PR is still not in, or if your PR has been rejected, this is the time for you to start looking for another program to study so that you can have a study permit to continue to stay in the country. All right, so let's read the news. The facilitative measures that has allowed international students to count time spent studying online towards the length of future postgraduate work permit, as long as it constitutes less than 50% of the program of study, will constitute to be in place for students who begin a study program before September 2024. This measure will no longer apply to students who begin a study program on or after that date. Distance learning facilitation measures were first implemented in 2024 in response to travel restrictions during the pandemic, and were reduced in scope in September 2022. At this point, the vast majority of international students are studying in person in Canada. So this is also for international students now. They are studying online back home. During the pandemic, they introduced this policy where when you study online back home, you are still entitled to apply for a work permit when you graduate. But this time around, you are not going to be entitled for that anymore. You need to be here in Canada in person to be able to finish your school and then get your postgraduate work permit. All right, the very last one, which is the very last bad news for people who are living in Canada who already have a work permit. Like I said, let's read it and then I'll explain further to you. In response to the labor market disruption during the pandemic and post-pandemic recovery, a temporary policy was introduced on 3 occasions, all right, to provide an additional 18-month work permit to postgraduate work permit holders as their initial work permit was expiring. Foreign nationals with a postgraduate work permit expiring up to December 31st, 2023 remain eligible to apply. However, this temporary policy will not be extended further. All right, so like I said, during COVID pandemic and post-pandemic, the immigration service extended a lot of work permits, especially students who are having postgraduate work permit. They kept extending it 18 months. It expired this year, and then they extended it to December this year. All right, they have in this letter saying that they are no more going to extend it. If your work permit is expiring in December, you have to take steps to renew your status in Canada. All right, so international student, I say you are still on postgraduate work permit now, and you have applied for your PR and it's been rejected. This is the time for you to start looking for an admission for January intake, so that you can get your study permit in order to stay in the country. If not, Charlie, wasumbeshi. So Charlie, they only gave us one good news, which is working more than 20 hours a week for international students who are already in Canada, or international students who apply for visa on or before December 7th. They are allowed to work for more than 20 hours a week. That is the only good news about this. The other bad news are three bad news, which is increasing the living allowance that is set on 10,000 Canadian dollars to 20,000 plus. The second bad news is that the postgraduate work permit holders who are currently in the country, whose work permit have been extended to December, will no more be extended. They have to, find ways and means to renew their status when their work permit expires in December. All right. And the third bad news is that if you are studying online back home, you are no longer going to be eligible for postgraduate work permit. You need to be in Canada to work full-time, to study full-time in Canada, before when you finish, you can be able to apply for your postgraduate work permit. But Charlie, so my followers who have been sending me messages about this news, yes, this news is true. It was released today on the 7th of December by the Immigration Service. But Charlie, like I told you guys, do not get worried, because this is just one of those things. All right, the Enyanisenti Ubenya me kanwa ya kum kasam senebaya, Bruno for Nanya de Ometi. The Enyanisenti Ubenya bank statement a genuine na second womb. Nagana and so dear, someone monim, Yanum Fui, Ubeti Manyabi, and I understand to bet you have kakra. So do not get worried. You need to make sure say you get the admission letter. And when you admission letter now, all these things Ghana and to the mainstream. And to my other followers who are watching me from Nigeria and other part of the world, do not get worried. Canada is a very beautiful place to live. As soon as you enter into Canada, the opportunities are there for you to continue to stay in Canada and live your life as you pleased, okay? According to the law. So you live your life in Canada as you please according to the law. All right, so this is the news I have for you. Please stay calm and stay focused, and inshallah God will speak. Thank you for watching this video, and please share for others to get hope about this new release that have been issued today. It is all hope is not lost. You still stay focused, and then God will speak at the right time. Thank you, and bye-bye.